Right here.
And we now call the Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Next, we've got the approval of the agenda. We're going to make some changes here, so follow along. We are going to move resolution 2020-19R, listed as item 7F, and that is the no local control gun ordinance, to be heard in between citizen comment and the public hearing. We will do that, I'm assuming that most people here are here for that item. That way you all can come here, we can vote on this. I have a resolution and everybody can leave and we're not sitting here sharing germs, all right? That's thing number two. Thing number one. Thing number two is we need to move item 6C, school board appropriation, from consent agenda, board members, over to new business. That will become item G. Board members, that meet with your approval? Is there a motion?
Go ahead. Make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The agenda as amended is now approved. We will now be led an invocation to the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Jennifer Moore.
Father, thank you for today. Thank you for all of your blessings and provisions that you so graciously give us. Thankful for all of those that have shown up tonight that care deeply for Amherst County. Father, I ask that you bless those that serve and work in our county, and that you protect those in our public safety, law enforcement, and military. Father, go before us tonight. Help us to make wise choices and decisions for Amherst County, and be with those in leadership of our nation. All this asked in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Moore. All right, we will now move into citizen comments. Citizen comments is where you can come forward to speak if there's something on the agenda that you'd like to speak to, or if there's something in general that you would like to address with the Board of Supervisors. Because we have such a large crowd here tonight, we're going to limit our comments to 3 minutes. And I'm going to be very strict with that. I've got my timer here. Those that are speaking will not address the board. The board will not answer any questions during the citizen comment period, unless a board member speaks up because there's something specific they would like to add. Fair enough?
Madam Chair, just a point of clarification. That this would exclude the public hearing.
That's correct. So, yeah, so if you want to speak to the resolution that will be held first, well, then they got to wait around. So we need to make an exception. I think I'd wait till the end. See what I'm saying?
No, they can still speak on the resolution. I was just saying that during public citizen comments, they can basically say anything they want to say, and you would exclude the information on the public hearing and allow them to speak.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Okay. Now, everybody understands the ground rules. We will now open up citizens' comments. And I have a list here of people who signed up. Just because you didn't sign up doesn't mean you can't speak. Okay? I encourage everyone here, if someone before you has already said the same thing you want to say, then just let their comments stand, and you can stand up and say, hey, me too, my name is, whatever. Everybody understand the rules? Okay, I'm going to call off a name. Mr. Greg Freshour.
That's me, but am I speaking at the end, like during the other section of the public hearing, or is it now?
Well, what do you want to, you wish
cell-
to speak to the Second Amendment?
To the cell towers, actually. What I'm-
Cell tower. There, you'll wait.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Janet Clarkson Freshour. Okay. Joanna Penzavino.
Same.
Okay. Mary Weiss.
Same.
Okay. Gordon Glenn or Coleman.
You want me to go now? You want me to speak now?
He's gonna speak with something else on the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's gonna be the public hearing. Don't call him.
Brian Cash.
Same.
Same. Okay. Ed Tinston.
Tinsley.
Okay.
Tinsley.
Okay.
I'm speaking.
All right. Mr. Vance Wilkins?
I'm speaking to the amendment.
Yes.
Now, when you open that public hearing,
No, this,
This is citizen comment.
because he was gonna speak to the amendment.
yeah, the second.
Second one.
Yes.
That's
I know, we're in the public hearing.
No, we're not, we're in citizen comment.
citizen comment.
I'm gonna say the same thing, I guess, either way, but, it's okay.
All right, Mr. Wilkins, state your name and your address, please, for the record.
Vance Wilkins, 299 East Monza Road, Amherst, Virginia. The Code of Virginia allowed localities to pass gun control ordinances, I know for 50 years from personal experience, and probably 100 years or more overall. These localities were allowed to do this primarily to make it more difficult for our black citizens to own a weapon. And I wanted to get rid of it, and finally in the mid-90s, I got a bill passed to eliminate the ability of localities to pass local ordinances. Later on, we also wiped all the local ordinances off the books. Virginia was a good state. You could go from one county to the next and know that you were still legal. It was really a mess if you stop and think about it. If we have one ordinance over here, Nelson has one, Alamo has one, Charlottesville has another one, a person doesn't know what they are doing is legal or not legal. Nobody can keep up with 100 different counties and cities passing different ordinances all over the place. It's a total mess. The legislature has just wiped all the work that we've done to make Virginia a more conservative gun-friendly state that we had over the years. If it was just concerning Amherst County, I wouldn't even be here. Amherst County is good. We got strong supervisors. I wouldn't even worry about it. But we need to show that somewhere in Virginia there, at least the people who have some common sense. And we need to make a stand here on this issue, not because I'm worried about what you all are going to do, but because we need to get the word out. We need to have counties all over the state showing that Virginia is not that crazy, that it's just the liberals that are doing this thing. So the real purpose of this amendment, not that we don't trust you all, but it's really to make sure we get the word out that people can see Virginia. You can drive through all the counties that have passed this resolution, knowing that you are safe to go, that you haven't done, you're not going to be breaking the law going from one community to another. The original laws were designed to trap people. This is what they want to do now. And I hope you all will pass this resolution and encourage other communities to do the same thing, because it really is just crazy to have a mishmash of laws that's very in detail from one county to the next. It's really bad. So if y'all could pass this, I really would appreciate it. I told people that not too many to come out tonight because of the seating arrangements and coronavirus, that I had faith in you all, and so I do. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. All right, next we've got Carol Tano or Jim Carter. Carol and Jim.
Happy with you, we'll speak on the cell phone.
Okay. Joel Newman. And Ken Thomas.
Cell tower.
Cell tower. All right.
Cell tower.
Okay.
I don't
Is there-
mind early.
Is there anyone here not wishing to speak on guns or the cell tower or any other public hearing that we've got on our list? Anybody here wishing to speak on anything else?
I am.
Ms. Myers, come forward, give us your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Virginia Myers, and I live at 142 Folly Hudson Road. I'm here in my capacity as chairwoman of the Coalition for a Cleaner County, which I think you all know. The last time I was here, I requested that you guys provide me with a name from each of your respective districts of someone who you thought might be an asset to our quest to clean up the county. And so far, I am at 20%. Claudia has given me a name, which is really great. I've been in touch with Melanie, and she seems fantastic. And you've also got in touch with Vito's, which is great, who are gonna sponsor some food and drink for volunteers. Thank you very much for that. But I'm here to remind you all that I'm still in need of volunteers. There is still lots of trash, and there aren't a lot of people to pick it up. So if you guys have any names to give me, or you can email me, or you can tell them to me right now, if you have a name on the tip of your tongue.
All right, things that we will get back to you.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, there's no one else here wishing to speak during citizen comment. We'll move on to the public hearing, and we will hear resolution 2020-19R, declaring Amherst County no gun control county. What? What did I just say? We're gonna.
Public hearing's not required for that.
Madam Chair, I think maybe you just want to call people for citizens' comments regarding that item.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mark on my agenda and I had it going the wrong way. So we're going to go back to the way we amended our agenda. We're going to take the resolution, which was new business, and we're going to put it up for public hearing. We're going to hear it. We're going to hear it. Resolution is included in your package. Board members, if you have any questions about this resolution?
No, Madam Chair. All right, no questions.
I move that resolution 2020-0019-R be adopted as presented.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Mr. Wilkins, did you have something you wanted to say?
Thank you all very much. Should be very honest.
All right, so anybody that was here for that resolution, feel free to leave.
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. All right, moving on. We will now open up the public hearing, and we will hear ordinance 2020-0001. Mr. Bryant, you're going to speak to this for us?
Yes, ma'am. In 2015, the Amherst County Board of Supervisors passed an ordinance which represented two multiple code changes to the zoning and subdivision ordinance. One of the code changes eliminated the 200-foot setback for any public land owned by the United States government and managed by the U.S. Forest Service. This code change was made evident in Section 804, in the minimum yard requirement section. However, Section 411, the buffer zone surrounding lands in P1, still illustrates a 200-foot setback for any public lands owned by the United States government and managed by the Forest Service. In order to show conformity throughout the county code, the attached code change to Section 411 of the zoning and subdivision ordinance eliminates the 200-foot setback for any public land owned by the United States government and managed by the U.S. Forest Service. The recommended motion is that you move that the board adopt ordinance 2020-0001 as presented.
Any questions, Mr. Bryant? All right, hearing none, we will now open up the meeting to the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this resolution? Speaking in favor, anyone wishing to speak opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we will now close the public hearing. Board members, what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, if there's no further discussion, I move that the board approve the agreement as presented and authorize the chair to execute this agreement.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Bryant, yep.
Okay, the next ordinance is 2020-002. This is Section 803 of the Amherst County Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance that identifies the maximum height restrictions for residential and other uses within zoning districts. Currently, Section 803 does not specify height restrictions for other uses in the R1 limited residential district. There are special exception uses that are listed in your summary sheet. After the last meeting, Supervisor Martin has some questions regarding the location of fire stations and how this code change could be relevant to them. It's a very good question. And what we found was that generally, all of the fire and EMS stations were either in a village zoning, commercial, public, and the only fire station that we could find that was zoned R1 would be impacted by this was the one near Lowe's in Madison Heights. Certainly that's an existing station, but what we were concerned about as staff is making sure that we felt like we were closing up a loophole where we had no height restrictions in the R1 district. It was really one of the few and only places where height restrictions were not addressed. And that was the purpose of why we were making that change, or proposing to make that change. Any specific questions for staff?
Any questions? Ms. Martin, did you get all of your questions answered?
I did, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right, if there's no further questions, then we will open this up to public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of? Anyone wishing to speak opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we will now close the public hearing section for 2020-0002. Board members, it's your pleasure.
Madam Chair, I move the board adopt ordinance 2020-0002 as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We will now move on to ordinance 2020-0009. Mr. Rogers will speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Effective 1 July, the county is authorized by Senate Bill 149 to increase the courthouse security fee from $10 to $20. That security fee is charged in cases by the judge, and that money is for the purpose of courthouse security. So we have before the board a draft ordinance change that would increase that fee from $10 to $20 in each case. Just for your information, that money just goes into our general fund. We use it to help pay for the salaries of the courthouse security guards. And otherwise, it's in the general fund, and it's also applied toward requests of the sheriff for various pieces of equipment and security. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. We will now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we will now close the public hearing, move on to questions or actions from the board.
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt ordinance 2020-0009 as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. All right, moving to solid waste disposal permit.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Last time we were here, we talked about allowing out-of-town trash to be disposed of in our convenience centers with a permit. The question came up at the last meeting that to make sure that our ordinance does not allow commercial trash of any instance to be dumped. I believe Mr. Lockerbie has changed the verbiage of that to ensure that. So the question before you tonight is, do you allow this for Public Works to sell permits to out-of-town residents to dump in our convenience centers? Public Works would sell the decals. We would monitor the program. We would ensure that it stays in compliance. The question is before you tonight if you'd like to allow this.
Board members, any questions?
Mr. Rogers, did you take care of the scrivener's error in paragraph C?
Yes, sir, we have that. We have that, and we will make sure that the final version removes the or, the additional or from section 13-3C.
Thank you.
Any further questions? We will now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the solid waste disposal permit? Anyone wishing to speak opposed? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close the public hearing and move on to action by the board.
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt ordinance 2020-0010 as presented and set the fee at $100 a year.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move now to the special exception. Mr. Ryan?
This is a request by Peter G. Traver for multiple special exception requests in the A1 Agriculture Residential District. The purpose of these special exceptions are to allow for an event area for weddings, church retreat, and special occasions. The request also includes allowing a short-term tourist rental of 4 existing cabins. This property is located at 2554 Stapleton Road and is further identified as tax map number 15284. This property was a former church and had been used for that purpose for many, many years. The Planning Commission recommended in favor of this request with the 5 conditions that are before you in your packet. The recommended motion is that the Board of Supervisors accept the Planning Commission recommendation and approve this special exception request with the conditions presented. Any questions for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any questions? All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of? Come forward, sir, and give us your name and address.
My name is Gentleman Junior, Stapleton Road, 183. All my friends been at that church. Son, mother, and all of them. And I had 2 grave sites right there. The son come to me and told me I couldn't go around the graveyard. He had 2, 3 bad dogs. I cleaned the graveyard. And they gonna take care of the grave. I went to the owner, told him what was going on. He supposed to give me a lot. So I have 2 grave sites, but I ain't got no lot. I don't know what to do with the dogs. So I need to find out from somebody what they will do.
All right, thank you. You can go be seated. Mr. Ryan, has this been addressed?
It's not necessarily part of the zoning hearing, but it's something we can certainly try to help with.
Mr. Lockley, can you work with Mr. Ryan to make sure that this gentleman has the proper access to these grave sites?
Yes.
Unencumbered, no mean dogs can access. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak for or against this? Come forward. We need your name and address, please.
Okay. Cynthia Peters.
Very good.
Cynthia Peters, 2609 Stapleton Road. We are the property directly across from where the venue is proposed at. There were a couple of questions that really were on a couple of people's list as far as the citizens go that live in the community that weren't asked at the Planning Commission. Kind of went kind of fast. A couple, and then I have a statement also, and I'm sorry to introduce them. Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, and citizens. What is the maximum occupancy of the church? You want to just go through my list? And,
If you list.
Maximum occupancy of the church. It was stated at the Planning Commission that the venue was going to stay, or weddings were going to stay from 25 to 50 people, as stated at the Planning Commission. And on the application for the special exemption, less than 100 is stated, and I realize that 50 is less than 100. Parking for short-term rentals, I was a little bit confused when I tried to read some of the ordinance wording. 500 feet from the nearest dwelling, is that from the nearest driveway? Is it from the driveway from where it enters the church or the rentals to the property that they own, which is a house that's on that property? Or is it the people that are next door? That I don't know. And biggest concern in our neighborhood and our community is the increase in traffic on Route 622, which is Stapleton Road. Everybody's driven that road. You know what it's like. You've got to stay on your side. If not, you're in trouble. The other thing was mentioned at the Planning Commission was the noise from any special events that were to be held there. Just a statement by me, you know, our community there is just generally our farms. You have 10 acres, 15-acre plots, some people have 200 acres, and it's always been quiet, and that's basically why we moved there. We're not crazy about a lot of noise, and you know, it sounds like they want to do a good thing with the church, and I realize that, and it has been in decay for a while, that's to make a profit at it. You're going to have to pack it every weekend or three nights, and the rentals, you know, are the big thing. I mean, you can vet people, and you can try to rent to the best people that you can possibly rent to, and still bad things happen. So, other than that, I would address Mr. Coleman's issue with the graveyard there. I tried to do some research, but Beulah United Methodist Church, the address that was there, sent me to Marsh Methodist Church on Timberlake, I think that's it, and a phone number, and I called it a couple times to see if there was a decree through the church, so when that property is sold, that those grave sites that they have already had or designated for those family members were continued on for those family members.
You were out of time.
Thank you.
No, you did a good job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak opposed? Before we give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Melanie Traver, and so my address is the 2554 Stapleton Road. My husband and I purchased this property. Our kids are going to Liberty, and so our first thought in buying this is for our family, because we have a large family, and it has multiple places so that we can all hang out while our kids, we have twins, and then our older son, who's going to be going the following year, all at Liberty, so we can be there and everybody can hang out. As a secondary, when we're not there, our older son is living in the house with his with our daughter-in-law, and they can rent out the cabins and have small churches. This isn't a money-making empire that we're trying to build. This is something for them to do to help with their living expenses, and so that we have a place to go. The cemetery, as I said in our previous meeting, I was the funeral director. I have a hearse, 1980 hearse. So the idea that the cemetery is not going to be taken care of, or that Mr. Coleman can't be buried next to his son, is ludicrous. And we have a letter being drawn up in our attorney's office, but we live in Philadelphia. So I came down here literally for this meeting today, and we plan to come back on the 17th when the kids get into school, and we will have a letter from Mr. Coleman for him and his wife to, of course, be buried next to his son. And I know the laws on cemeteries more than anybody else because I was in the business. So I understand that if it's your cemetery property, that's your property. That's not my property. I can't go do anything to that plot. So nothing's happening to the cemetery except for we're going to take fantastic care of it, because I really appreciate that kind of thing. The church can hold probably 100, 125 people. It would be packed. It would be uncomfortable. Like I said, it's not about us making as much money as we can. This is to help my son and his wife to have an additional income, because they moved and he left his business from Atlanta to come here and be with his siblings because they can't bear to be apart. So this is a supplemental income deal for them. Our first foremost is for our family to be comfortable. The weddings, it would comfortably hold 25 to 50 is our target area. We could fit 75. I would discourage somebody. Anything over that, I would probably say no, unless it was just a bunch of little kids. That's just what will fit. These people moved in. This church has been here over 100 years. They've known that a church was there. They've known that somebody could come in and reopen this as a church, and they've had no problem with that. So to have a problem with us trying to do something that is basically the same thing except for scaling it down I don't really see that. What else? The cabins have parking, right? They have there's parking all over. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else who wishes to speak for or against? Hearing and seeing none, we will now close the public hearing and open it up to questions from the board.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Trader? Did you come back up?
Mr. Trader.
So, Mr. Trader, the petitioner is listed as Peter G. Is that your husband?
That's my husband.
All right. So who's actually going to be running the venue? If you're in Pennsylvania, is it your son?
My son and daughter-in-law.
Okay. So
we'll be coming frequently, but right, the day-to-day they'll be doing.
And the occupancy of the church, is that just based on what you feel like is seat there, or was there any kind of building code review done?
I tried to get with them and they said that I can't, they didn't want to come out because I didn't have the zoning. So, but there's 14 pews and they're about 9 feet across, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Trader? Thank you. Board members, any other questions? All right, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll say that I think it's important for us to take care of our older historic buildings. I fully expect that the Traders will work with the neighborhood about access to the cemetery. Mr. Lockerbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're actually legally obligated to do so. So it's either that or leave the building to demo it, apparently. So I would move the resolution.
You move what?
I would move adopting the special use.
Okay. All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody that spoke. Mr. Traver, welcome to Amherst County. All right, next we've got a special exception of Ms. Dorothy Shiflett. Mr. Bryant.
This is a request by Dorothy H. Shiflett for a special exception in the A1 agricultural district. The purpose of this special exception is to allow kennel. The property is located at 318 Campbell's Mill Road. It's identified as tax bill number 82-A, parcel 19A. Ms. Shiflett intends to board dogs long-term, on average 4 to 6 weeks per dog. She plans to train the dogs at her house. An accessory building that's 30 feet by 14 feet in size would house up to 10 dogs in kennel spaces. They're 5 by 5 in size. Planning Commission recommended denial of the request. Staff will point out, if you do choose to approve it, staff recommends that you consider the conditions that were put before you in your report. The recommended motion is that the board deny the request based on the Planning Commission's recommendation. Any questions for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Any questions, board members?
Not at this time.
All right, we will now move on to the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this special exception? Come forward and give us your name and your address, please.
I'm Dorothy Harrison Shiflett. I live at 318 Campbell's Mill Road, Amherst, Virginia. I prepared something so I could, say it, and y'all, any questions?
That's fine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harris Shiflett. I'm a resident of 318 Campbell's Mill Road, Amherst, Virginia. I own and operate Harrison's Canine Training. I train all manners of dogs, from puppy obedience to housebreaking, disability assistance companions, and most any other training needs. My business is a concierge service, and that I pick up the dogs at the resident for the initial evaluation. I bring them home for training. Once the training is complete, I return the dogs to their owners for follow-up training. I've applied for a special provision to the zoning regulations for agricultural permit, a kennel to be built on my property. The zoning administrator, Mr. Bryant, has recommended approval of this with the recommendation that I build the kennel, then get the zoning approval and limit my clients to 10 dogs. The recommendation that I build the kennel prior to approval from zoning goes against any real business practice. My business would be out roughly $30,000 if the zoning was denied. Limiting me to 10 dogs is problematic, and that it limits my ability to build my business. If the limit is due to concerns about dog neglect or abuse, Amherst County and the Commonwealth of Virginia both have strict laws that would govern this, and the Amherst County Animal Control Office enforces these. If the issue is noise, there is also an ordinance that exists to handle this as well. Placing a limit on my business prior to any issue is stifling commerce. At both the first and second planning commission hearing, there were no objections to this request from any local residents. The only question to be asked with the special provision request is this an appropriate use for an agriculturally zoned property? It is a basic land use issue. If the answer is no, what zoning allows a kennel by right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Board members, any questions? Washington, podium, Mr. Martin.
I do, thank you so much. So, the information that we have said you were requesting 10 dogs, but what you just said is.
I plan to expand my business. I don't plan on having any more than 15, but if I have, like at Christmas, you have more dogs boarding. And I don't want to have to go through this process again in a year or two when my business keeps growing to just ask to add 3 more dogs to it. Because I plan on expanding my kennel.
Understood.
Anything else?
Board members? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here wishing to speak opposed? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Board members, any questions from us? We've heard testimony. Any questions from Mr. Bryan?
Yes. So, well, it might be from Ms. Shipley, I'm so sorry. So, the water to the property is from a spring box, is that correct?
Would you like me to come back up?
Yeah, if you, I'm
Please
sorry,
do.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I don't know if like anyone's familiar with water tables in where we live in Clifford. They're horrible.
Yep.
Our neighbor has tried to buy our spring box for whatever price because he's drilled 5 wells. So yes, we have a spring box and it has reserves down there filled with water. You can do 3 loads of laundry, take a shower, do everything, you're still not gonna run out of water.
So you're not concerned?
No.
Okay. So, what will you do with the waste from the animals after you clean it up?
Excuse me? What is the best way to explain that?
Should I come up?
Yeah, come on up, please. And we're going to need your name and address as well. And Shipley, don't go too far because we may have another question for you.
I'm Betty Slough, I'm her mother, and I'm a consultant on some of this. I live in Afton, Virginia. She contacted the health department, because she plans to pick up the solid waste every day and rinse off the residue. The health department sent her to the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. She explained the process to them. They said, we don't know, you need to go to the EPA. So she contacted a gentleman, Mr. Nelson, of the EPA, and she has the email changed to show it, that if she surface discharges this waste, residual waste from the kennel, there is no regulation because animals defecate in the woods and on the fields all the time. If she were to drain it into a subsurface drain, then there is regulation, but that's not what she plans to do. She's going to surface drainage off.
Yeah, I understand washing the floor, I'm just saying.
Right.
Fix up.
The solids,
Yeah.
they'll go to the landfill, bagged appropriately.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. I know that you get the water out of the spring, you're gonna use a water hose to do that. What are you gonna do in the winter time when water hoses freeze? What's your plan
The
then?
building's heated, will be heated.
So you just keep all your hoses inside?
Right, and everything she'll have a water supply that feeds up through the floor, and it'll be heated all the way to well below the frost line.
Okay,
So she won't have problems with freezing.
okay. Any other questions, board members? All right, what's your pleasure?
Well, I would I definitely support young people starting businesses, definitely younger than I am. I understand your concern about having to come back, if she wants to expand. It sounds like everything's going to be closed. I do have one more question, Bishop. I'm so sorry.
Bishop, will you come back, please?
You won't have to exercise. So when you're training the dogs, let's say you had 15 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna have them all out at once or?
No.
Okay.
No, that's not appropriate. And the dogs in there aren't necessarily training. The dogs I train, I offer boarding. I will only board dogs I train because that's how you pick the good clients. So every dog in there is not training. I train roughly 4 to 5 at a time. So all the others are boarding, and then you'll mostly get filled up for like holidays or, hurricanes down south.
So there's not gonna be 15 wild pack dogs running the clipper?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Not,
I
no.
don't think so, but yeah, okay.
Hey, while you're here, so you got an exercise run that's attached to the kennel to let them out to exercise. All right, what's, I'm just curious, what is your plan? The dogs will be kept inside their runs for X amount, and then you'll train them. Will there be any free time where they just go out and
Yes,
exercise?
they do have free time in the morning. You let the good dogs out with each other. They go out, they run around while, you're cleaning out kennels and whatnot. So, yes, they get plenty of free time. They don't just stay in their kennel unless it's a dog that is not appropriate at that time to be let out.
And you'll have the appropriate signs around your property?
Absolutely.
That say,
I already have signs.
it could be a.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I don't think so. But
Alright.
The run area is fenced or?
It will be fenced, absolutely. My dogs don't run at large. That's disrespectful to my neighbors. It's just not okay.
Would you be opposed if that was a condition of approval?
No, that would absolutely be fine. That is already in our plan.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I'll wait till you get back.
Mr. Pugh, you were there during the planning commission. Anything you want to add or any comments you might want to make put forward?
No, I think, I think all the items have been addressed. The dogs are going to be in a safe environment. It's going to be fenced in, and I think we should approve the request. Although there might be some, I'll let Mr.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Pugh. I think we should add the condition that the exercise area would be fenced, which it sounds like that's agreeable to Mr. Shiplet. And, I think it's a great thing that people are wanting to start businesses in Amherst County. I don't think this is going to be detrimental to that neighborhood. So I would propose that we limit it to no more than 15 dogs, so that it does allow this shipment to expand without having to come back to this process.
All right, would you like to make a motion and add that to it?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we add condition 6, that the exercise area be fenced, and that number 3 be amended to no more than 15 dogs shall be boarded at the facility at any one time, and that we approve it with the conditions of it.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Ms. Shiplet and Ms. Shiplet's mom, congratulations. Thank you for starting your business in Amherst County.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to the Selco Partnership, special exception. Mr. Bryant.
This is a request about Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for a special exception in the A1 Agricultural Residential District. The purpose of this special exception is to allow the construction of a personal wireless service facility. The proposed tower would be a 195-foot tall monopole tower with equipment cabinets at the base in a fenced-in area. This property is located at 801 Phyllis Lee Drive. It's identified as tax map number 122-A-26. You'll have a presentation shortly from Verizon, Lori Schweller, who will provide information and show the heights of the proposed tower. There were actually, this is somewhat unique because certainly COVID, but there were two balloon flies that were flown. The first balloon fly was done, and there was a second one that was requested at the planning commission meeting because there were folks that lived on Kimberly Drive that felt like they were here and they were impacted. But the initial balloon flight did not show how their residents and their street would be impacted. So Verizon did willingly go back out and they did a second balloon fly. So that's a little unusual, but you will see that in their presentation tonight. I would like to point out that the Planning Commission did recommend denial of this request. Again, if you choose to approve it, staff has a list of conditions that we would ask that you consider. There are 5 conditions in your packet. I'd also like to take this moment to go over and summarize some of the comprehensive plan as it has to do with cell phone towers in Amherst County. Some of these will be pros and cons. But the information technology and broadband services section of the comp plan, goal number 1 says to continue to improve the county's information technology infrastructure to deliver state-of-the-art practices and services within and outside the county to current residences, prospective residences, and business and industry. The objective is to work to expand, develop, and or maintain information technology assets that maintain current businesses and attracts new businesses, employees, and new residents to the county. There's a strategy that states that access to the status of the broadband internet access in the county, and the county information technology needs and assets, geospatial data to develop comprehensive broadband internet access, information technology, and to encourage affordable access to broadband for all citizens. Now, this isn't necessarily broadband. They're proposing a 5G tower eventually, but this is also for better cell phone coverage for voice. There's a public safety goal that says to ensure continuous improvement in the delivery of 911 communications and to the community and public safety. Conversely, the comprehensive plan also talks about other things that I would like to draw your attention to. Under cultural resources and community aesthetics, goal number 1 is to preserve and improve the aesthetics of Amherst County. Objective number 1 is to improve the appearance of Amherst County's built environment. And objective number 2 is to preserve and maintain the unique natural features of Amherst County. I think you'll find in the presentation tonight that there will be locations where these towers are placed that could, in fact, compromise folks' visibility to High Peak Mountain. I'd also like to point out that Route 130 is our only scenic byway in the county. And we noticed from the observations, from the pictures that Verizon provided, that although not in the scenic byway, from the scenic byway, this cell phone tower will be observed. And so that's certainly something that, as we recognize that scenic byways are an important area for tourists in our county and people to see our county. When we expand these natural tourism opportunities, the county's also, that's a goal in the comprehensive plan. So I want to point out that there are certainly pros and cons in the comprehensive plan. And the recommended motion was to deny the request based on the Planning Commission's recommendation. Do you have any questions for staff at this time?
Any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Bryan. We will now open up the public hearing for the Selco Partnership Verizon Wireless Specialist Exception. We will actually do that after we hear from you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Lori Schweller, attorney with Williams Mullen, representing Verizon Wireless. With me tonight is Mark Stallmaker, who is radio frequency engineer with Verizon Wireless, as well as Nate Holland, who's the project manager for this site with GDN Sites. I have a presentation for you, so I'm going to try to find that. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for waiting. The proposed site is located on a large parcel of agricultural land, as you can see here, belonging to Mr. Roland Gurling on Phyllis Lee Drive.
The objectives of the proposed site are to improve service to residents and businesses in Elon and on Elon Road and adjacent roadways. This is Verizon's second attempt to provide that needed service. The first was a potential co-location on a site that Milestone Communications was trying to get approved a few years ago. When that failed, they reassessed and presented this new proposal to you. Currently, folks that we're targeting for better service are being served by a tower on the mountain, which I'm pointing to here. The site is called High Peak. It's 2.6 miles to the north of the proposed site, which is shown in this map with a yellow star. So what this map is showing you is the 4 existing Verizon wireless sites in the network closest to the proposed site, which is in the center and it happens to be called Mance Road. So you can see that those existing sites, most of them are around 4 to 5 miles. High Peak is 2.6 miles. And High Peak was constructed back when we were in the early stages of cell phone usage, and the technology was using a lower bandwidth. So these towers were propagating many miles, and they were put along the mountains, which you can see easily as you drive down 81. But what we're trying to do now is to provide state-of-the-art service, which is currently 4G. And so, as you probably know, voice services are provided over LTE by Verizon. So everything's digital. And this is indeed a way that you can have broadband service in the rural areas. So it would provide all of the services Verizon Wireless offers. Currently, 5G is only in select urban areas that have been built out for 5G, like Virginia Beach and areas of Richmond. Wireless is an essential utility. The important percentage on this slide is that almost 60% of people now don't even have a landline anymore. And that's especially important to think about when you know that 75% of 911 calls are made by wireless. So without wireless, you may not have the connectivity you need. And of course, as we've all noticed during the last 3, 4, 5 months, wireless is more important than ever if we're working at home or learning from home, using telemedicine and other applications. There's more and more usage of applications, and more data demand for existing applications. In fact, in the past 10 years, data demand has increased 58-fold, 58 times what it was in 2010. And just in the first quarter of 2020, because of COVID, the data demand has increased 47% over this quarter in 2019, 17% over December 2019. So it's just exacerbating and increasing the ever-increasing data demand that's happening. Sometimes people are worried that a wireless facility will have a detrimental effect on their property values. But actually, wireless is the second most important factor for people looking for homes, and that includes in the rural areas. Only Good Hospitals ranks higher. If you look at CommonwealthConnect.virginia.gov, this is an initiative of the governor to provide functionally universal broadband coverage in Virginia in 10 years, which would help with the growth in small business revenue and jobs. It would help with agricultural output through connected agriculture technologies, agriculture being Virginia's #1 business, and would increase property values. Unfortunately, 64% of Virginia's rural population lacks access to broadband. And if you look at the map that's provided online, you can see the various types of broadband options that people have. Here I'm closing in on the area of Amherst County that we're trying to serve. The star represents the site once again. And you can see some options. Purple is cable wireline coverage. Blue is fiber. Green is DSL copper coverage. Dark green is where you have cable and DSL. But all those places where you don't see a color, you need wireless, and that's the most efficient way to bring broadband to rural areas where you don't have it now. It serves the greatest number of people most quickly. Mr. Bryant talked about your comprehensive plan goals, so I won't spend a lot of time going over that, just to say that you do have a strategy to encourage and facilitate private sector investment in broadband. It's very expensive to build out broadband, build facilities, and to lay down the fiber for backhaul. And so, when private companies want to bring that to the county to serve the citizens. We believe that the special exception criteria are met with this application. We're proposing a lot of mitigation techniques to minimize the visual impact. This is not a lattice tower or a traditional cell phone. We're proposing a pole, a monopole. And that pole can be painted brown, which makes it practically invisible with a mountain backdrop, or it can be left matte galvanized steel, which is a better surface if it has a sky lit backdrop. We're also offering flush mounted antennas. That means the antennas are only going to stand off from the monopole 14.5 inches. So you really won't notice them. So it looks like a pole essentially. You have seen the balloon test photographs and simulations already, probably, but I'll run through them quickly, especially for the benefit of those in the audience who haven't had an opportunity to see them, focusing on the second balloon test, because the only folks who've come forward with any concerns about visual impact are those who live on Kimberly Drive and Phyllis-Lee Drive. So we were careful to map all of their property locations so that we could get a photo from each one. Those who requested a photo at their homes, we took photos there, and others we took at the road near their properties. So these are all the locations where we took from Phyllis-Lee Drive and Kimberly Drive on March 14th. And I'll just run through these relatively quickly. The first one was the balloon itself. The second one is a photo simulation. This one has a mountain backdrop, so it's a little bit more difficult to see. This one here, you can see, because of the skylighting, you can do that in steel. I do have with me the set of photographs from the first balloon test, and I'll be happy to show those if you'd like to see them, but otherwise I've kept them to the back of the presentation. And I should point out in this view that we are proposing a 50-foot no-cut zone between the lease area and Phyllis-Lee Drive. So the trees along there would not be cut, which would help to continue to screen. Of course, these balloon tests were done when the leaves were off the trees, so in a view like this, you wouldn't see the monopole at all. This is a map just to show you the locations of where we took the photographs during the first balloon test. But again, I won't show those unless you would request it. We did have some concern, as I mentioned, about people worrying whether something like this would have an impact on their property values. And so I pulled up for you a more recent study from about a year ago. And this one found that broadband availability raises the market value of rural homes. It was a study done of all 887 remote rural U.S. counties. In other words, they're not adjacent to metro areas. And they found that only 63% have access to broadband, quite consistent with Virginia's number. 6% have no internet at all except dial-up. A 10% increase in the number of residents with access to internet at 200 kilobits per second, which is a relatively low speed, would increase the average housing values by $611, which increases property tax for the localities. That's my initial presentation. I'm happy to take questions, and of course, Mark Stoniker is here as well for your more technical questions.
Board members, do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, we'll now open a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for the cell tower, wishing to speak for? Come forward, sir, and give us your name and address. And limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Ed Tinsley, and I live 410 Phyllis Lee Drive, and it's not that I'm speaking for it, I'm just speaking for one question that you brought up, and I researched both of this because she was the one making a presentation at the planning commission, and a couple of them that I researched on, it was the thing on the value of the property. She's already covered that. She covered the 911 calls, but what I asked the EOC center here in the county, and I just got the information last week, for this year, from January the 1st through last week, there were 6,771 calls to the 911 EOC center here in Amherst. 85% of them were cell phone and 15% were landlines. Okay?
Thank you, sir. That's good information. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of? All right, we will move on to those wishing to speak opposed. So, all right.
I'm here with my wife. Can I speak with some of her time?
You can, and we encourage people to do that. Thank you.
So I could probably do that in 4.5 minutes versus 6 minutes.
Are y'all not saying the same thing?
No. I mean, I kind of combined it, so.
Okay. Oh, it's still 3 minutes, so, but do your best to get it 3 minutes, okay?
Real fast.
All right,
It's Greg-
appreciate it.
Greg Freshour, 224 Kimberly Road. Thank you for your time. The Amherst County citizens in the Elon community do not want a cell tower that greatly affects our view sheds and Tobacco Row Mound and affects property values. Tobacco Row Mound is a landmark in Amherst County that we love and why we moved here. We have invested in this county in our homes by not only moving here for this view, but by becoming permanent residents, supporting Amherst County tax revenues. My wife and I have been in our home in Elon for over 22 years. When I reviewed the 198 pages of the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan, several goals and objectives were highlighted. To promote our scenic view sheds, protect view sheds along the primary corridors, preserve and enhance scenic corridors, protect and enjoy the natural beauty of the county, enhance the quality of life for county citizens, preserve and maintain the unique natural features of Amherst County. Based on these goals and objectives, the Comprehensive Plan supports opposing a cell tower, which affects citizens' view sheds of Tobacco Row Mountain. I'm all for progress, and we should pursue cell towers in Amherst County, but not at the expense of affecting view sheds of those who have beautiful views of Tobacco Row Mountain and other valuable view sheds across the county. I know of at least 2 individuals, Van Johnson on Winesap Road and Mountain Wells on Route 130, who want to be considered for a cell tower in their farmland, which would not affect view sheds. Verizon's engineer stated if another location was within 1.5 miles of the proposed site, it would still achieve the same effect. I'm certainly not against Verizon, enhanced cellular service, or Amherst County's projected growth initiative to offer broadband. However, I'm against blocking view sheds of Amherst County residents, diminishing their quality of life. It's why we moved here to Amherst County and why we stay. Many services provided by Amherst County are paid for by real estate property taxes. Like myself, those who live in rural areas have views of Tobacco Row Mountain have significant value in their assessed properties. I am the District Human Resources Manager for VDOT and have been teleworking for almost 4 months from my home in Elon and have not had any issues with connectivity with Verizon or Verizon Internet. I participated in meetings with Zoom, Blue Jeans, and Google Meets. Just about everyone in our surrounding neighborhoods I've spoken to says they don't have any internet or phone issues with Verizon in the Elon area. I live on a small farm in Elon. I raised my family here, and I want my grandchildren to play football and softball and other sports in my yard and have those uninterrupted
views of Tobacco Road Mountain. Please uphold the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan by protecting our view sheds and opposing this Verizon special exception permit, which blocks the view sheds of tax-paying citizens. There are other alternatives that I provided to achieve these same goals, and the view sheds will be protected. I've submitted a petition this evening by 81 Elon citizens, not just a few on Kimberly Road, but 81 citizens who do not want this obtrusive tower at the base of Tobacco Road blocking their view sheds and altering the scenic beauty of Tobacco Road, our perfect slice of Amherst County. Thank you for your consideration, for your service to our county.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Did I make it in 3 minutes?
You did.
Thank you. Okay, great.
Is there anyone else who are wishing to speak opposed to, wishing to speak opposed? Come forward, sir, and give us your name and address.
Tim Beverly, I live at 2097 Cedar Gate Road in Madison Heights. And my house directly faces where that tower is going to go. And I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's going to be greatly affected by that Android standing in the middle of the field with a big bright flashing light. I was in China back in August last year for vacation, and they tried to dress these things up. And she was talking about painting it brown and doing the different things to it. The Chinese people take artificial tree limbs and put on these things, and it's ungodly to have to look at that thing, sitting in the middle of a parking lot or wherever they end up putting these things. I bought my house 20 years ago where I am right now. I always saw that house and I fell in love with it when I seen it, but what sold me on that house was the day I went up the driveway and turned around and looked back at that mountain. I bought that house the day I saw it. We've been through several reassessments of value, tax values on the land. Mine went up $20,000. And I've never come to the county board of supervisors and argued the fact, that my taxes on my property is too high. I'm satisfied with that because I think my property is worth that. I'm just asking you to protect the property of the people that's around there. She talked about the balloon test that they put up. The only people that got the notification of the balloon test that went up was the people that lived right around the Phyllis Lee Road. Nobody else up in that area that I know of from Phyllis Lee Road all the way up 130 got the same notification that the other people there on Phyllis Lee Road got. Why didn't they? The sign for the ordinance that they had there to put the tower up, it wasn't on the main road. It was all the way up where the site was going to be. I'm sure you'd have probably had a whole lot more opposition to this before now, had that sign been down on the main road where everybody could have seen what was going on at that time. And it just seems to be deceptive to me that somebody's trying to slide something in like that. When you come down 130 or you come off of the parkway and you come down into, from 60 or 130 even one, you see the signs for the lakes and you want to go down and you look at the lakes and you see that beautiful landscape around those lakes. That's a selling point for Amherst County. That's what attracted me here. I was driving from University every day to Virginia Fiber to work, but I needed to get close to work. When I came down 130 into Elon, I always wanted to live there. And that was the selling point for me because of the beautiful landscape. I'm just asking you folks to consider the 80-some signatures that he got together of the people that live in that area that is going to be directly affected by that. What I got to hear was a speech from Verizon and their profitability. It's not about their concern for our taxes or our land values. It's all about their profit. I'm asking you to keep Amherst County beautiful. Keep it the way it is. Thank you.
And Mr. Beverly, for the record, this tower will, because I called and doing my due diligence on this, it won't have any lights on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak opposed? Name and address, please.
Ken Thomas from 164 Kimberly Road. I'm a Christian Presbyterian random pastor. Our Thomas acreage is 11 acres that's immediately adjoining Phyllis Girling's property, and would be one of the ones most affected by the view of this pole. A couple of points that I would share. One is I do feel like the process by Verizon was less than above board. My mom did not get, she lives on the property, I'm in Charlotte right now. She did not receive a notice ahead of time of the first balloon test. I only found out about it through neighbors who called me and let me know. I'm a bit concerned about that. I also concerned about at the planning commission hearing that when they were showing pictures of the balloon test, they showed none from the Kimberly Road area, which is one of the areas that's most adjacent to and most affected visually by a tower that would be placed in that spot. My mom is Mitzi Thomas, who's 95 years old. She and Dad selected that site back in 1957, and they picked it largely because of that incredible view of Tobacco Row Mountain of High Peak. And I would hate to see that damaged. There is an issue, of course, of property values, but it's more than about money as far as we're concerned. We love that place. We love the view. It's a big part of why we live there. I know I heard the numbers from Verizon about resale value, but I also know that views count when it comes to selling properties. I asked my mom today, do you have any comment for the Board of Supervisors? She would have been here herself in her wheelchair had she not had a doctor's appointment today, and she was too exhausted to get here. I said, anything you want to tell them tonight? I'll pass it on, Mom, and she did. She said, that's all she said. And my last point is, as a Virginia Tech forestry major, I am extremely dubious of a nearly 200 foot tall brown pole blending in with trees and a mountain. I just don't really see that as happening.
And you are out of time.
I am out of my end of my comments too.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time. I do encourage you to vote this down.
Anyone else here wishing to speak opposed? Name and address, please.
Mary Weiss, WEISS, 222 Kimberly Road.
Why don't you spin that down a little bit? There you go.
Yeah, because I'm a little short side.
I want to say that.
As a retired educator, I am definitely not opposed to better technology. However, the view of that mountain is one of the reasons that I moved back from North Carolina last year. I'm residing in the house that my sister and our parents built the house. And I remember as a 12-year-old in 1956, standing on the corner looking at this property. It was on a Sunday drive. Another day and I were out there, looking at properties, and Tobacco Row Mountain on the right, Apple Orchard, the peaks in the distance. I turned to Daddy and said, this is it. We don't need to look anymore. And I still feel that way. Mom and Daddy are not here with us anymore, but I'm opposed to something obstructing the view. Not the technology, just something obstructing the view. And I don't see how. I've watched as I've traveled down roads. I've seen the monopoles. The ones without lights, so it's about the same height. They obstruct your view. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak? The gentleman here in the dark shirt. Your name and address, please.
My name is Jerry Rose. I live up on 1819 Pearl Road up next to the Blue Ridge Parkway. I get horrible internet service. I usually get like 0.02% or less a bunch of times. A bunch of times I get no internet. I get drop calls up on the Parkway. We get drop calls on 130. I'm on Straight Talk Verizon. And so I know since we have the virus, a bunch of times it got even worse. A bunch of times you do good to get on the internet. I live up in the mountains, so I understand a lot about what some of these people say. I just let them down here. I do look over this shop when they're at the mountain right there, so I'm not gonna say where the best place to put the tower is. I'm not gonna, I understand their concerns. I'm just saying on the other side of the mountain, the other side of Amherst County, a bunch of times there are places with drop calls, for internet service and stuff like that. So there may be a better place to put it or different options. So, I'm not opposed to, what they're saying about where they want to go. But there are problems in Amherst County as far as being able to get the internet and get drop calls and stuff like that. A bunch of times people recall, I'll drop calls a bunch of times on 130, usually at the packing shed, used to be the orchard right there. It's not much to even call it again until you get on the other side of the road up on it. You're coming up next to the parkway. But anyway, there are some issues right there that would be improved by putting the tower somewhere. I'm not saying necessarily that they put it there, but
All right, thank you, sir. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Van Johnson. I live on 1765 Winesap Road, not too far from where they want to put the tower up. And I guess what I'm gonna say is, being a firefighter for 18 years, I'm very well knowledge on the importance of 911 and communications, and I'm in favor of the tower in that way. But I also don't want to see the mountain be constructed, and I have a solution for the problem. My wife and I recently purchased 28 acres up the road from there. And I think it's not even over a mile and a half from y'all's proposed site. It joins the county land. And what I have to offer with that is, the county has been after me, been after to get a right way to go down through there. That's the old Transferry Road that goes through there, giving the connector all the way through the 130. We've had a nice road back there, and I don't know, I haven't talked to them at Verizon yet, but I'm sure that they can provide a nice road going through there. And my property would be very well suited. I've already talked to 4 or 5 of the people that live near there, and they're absolutely fine with it, aren't gonna fight it or anything, and it would not obstruct any views at all. So the only thing needs to be done is testing. It needs to be done to see if it will work. So I have a solution for the problem, and I would like to consider that. And does move forward. Thank you.
Have you mentioned this to anyone before tonight?
Yes, I've talked about it, but we just have to see what happens from here. But like I said, I mean, I've got something that the county can.
Did you talk to the planning commission?
Never had talked to them.
Did you talk to anybody in the county?
No.
Okay.
But, so y'all are the first time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson, right?
Yeah. And one more thing, I don't want y'all to be confused. It's not the land that's in the city gate. We bought some more land that joins the reservoir on Winesap. It's not that field that my dad owns. This would be his name too.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak opposed?
Just a comment based on.
Well, no, if you got something to say, come up here so we can hear you. Everybody can hear you. Name and address, please.
Jim Thompson, 214 Camden Drive, Madison Heights. Chair, supervisors, Mr. Johnson did call me, you probably forgot, it's been a couple of months ago. And my comments to him were, it was an open-ended, non-solved issue at the point of where we were with the planning commission. And I recommended he talk to probably folks he did talk to, if he wanted to offer up that as a potential alternative solution, pending what may or may not happen for the planning commission and the board of supervisors. So he did speak to me, and I tried to give him that comment without going any further. I would say also that, Madam Chair, I've been on the planning commission for 4 years now. I will say I was asked to be on the planning commission after I opposed the original tower, and I'm not going to go through that for the people in this room or for you or anybody else at this point, but it was a struggle. And needless to say, that struggle led me and got me on the planning commission for some reason. Lord only knows, but I'm happy to serve there. I'll tell you, in 4 years, I've vetted every cell site that's come before me. I've done it fairly. We've not disallowed another cell tower since then, since that original request in you. I've been on the broadband selection committee. I volunteered to be there. I've done my darndest to provide the best input I could for the county and for the citizens, so that we got broadband from SCS, who we've got a great partnership with, who's growing and developing, and has a tower on Tobacco Road now. I personally have service through SCS and Verizon right now. And I've got service from Verizon from DSL. I've got service from Verizon wireless. There's never been an issue with service in Elam in my 29 years of being in Elam. That tower was the tower on top of the mountain that Ms. Waller spoke about. My folks put the fiber to that tower probably 17 years ago. And I will tell you that there's still capability on that tower because we don't have problems. There may be other issues of wanting capacity, additional broadband services. I understand that, and I understand the other alternatives. One thing that disappointed me greatly on the Planning Commission's review of this was 14 of the 29 abutters. Somebody didn't understand a few minutes ago why they didn't get notification. Well, Ms. Thomas certainly should have got notification. She sits right in front of the tower. I mean, right in front of it. She didn't get notification. Whether it was sent or not, I don't know. But 14 of the 29 abutters to this property originally that was sent out were on Kimberly Drive. The first balloon float that you heard about, I did request that got redone because no one on Kimberly was represented. No pictures were taken. And Verizon, unfortunately, said they failed to go down that road because they thought it was a private road. Well, I'm sorry. That didn't set well with me. And therefore, I wasn't, at the end of the day, I wasn't the person on our planning commission that made the motion to deny this tower. One of my colleagues did. I didn't even second the motion. I didn't have to. They all heard it. They went to talk to these residents. There are alternative solutions. And we shouldn't just go by the nature of thinking it's just going to be okay, because that's not always the case. But I'll tell you the last time, I've done everything in my power to do the best things for this county in the last 4 years. This is not the best thing for the residents on Kimberly, Phyllis Lee, and several other folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else here wishing to speak opposed?
Good evening, I'm Jewel Newman, and I live at 245 Phyllis Lee Drive. The Kimberly Drive separates me from that property. So when I come down my beautiful street, Phyllis Lee, which I lived on for 32 and a half years, I'm off there because of the beautiful view of Tobacco Road. There'll be a big tower sticking up all the way down the street for me to view instead of the mountain. My grandparents raised my mother up on Tobacco Road Mountain, so it has special meaning to me to be able to be in the vicinity of where my mother grew up. My husband came in the picture 24 years ago. He came down the street and said, "This is God's country." He says, "It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen." He says, "I'm never going to leave here. Even if we don't get together, I'm going to find a piece of property and live down the street from here." I'll help her. But please don't ruin our view. SCS is great. I have them along with some other people here. I've been at community college when we've been closed, doing online classes, no problem. Zoom, no problem. And if SCS is working on their tower, my LTE works great on the Verizon side. So I've not had any problems getting online or doing anything I needed to do to keep my classes going forward. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak opposed?
Yes, ma'am. I'm right there.
We can't hear you yet.
Okay, John Ettingham. I'm right there at 225 Kimberly Road. I hope this doesn't take off my time, but I have another viewpoint from Dick Carrington and Associates, who are adjacent property owners, and I was asked to give a copy of this to the supervisor.
And we'll start the clock when you start talking.
Okay. Thank you. Pugh. No, we don't like to read that. And I think that expresses the Carrington's disapproval of this tower and reasons for it. That shall go over there.
Before you get started, we can read and listen.
Okay. I gotta say that dealing with the cell tower issue has been an eye-opening experience. I really want to see upgrades of our information systems in Amherst County, communications, and the grid and such. I don't think there's anybody that would disagree about that. But on the way to that goal, I really didn't expect to see the information provided us or not provided us manipulated and been as deceptive as it's been from the cell tower folks. I noticed that the information I got from the county about these meetings that I had to appropriate on my own, they call themselves Cellco or GDN sites. Well, I was wondering why they call themselves two different things, so I called up the State Corporation Commission, found out that Cellco is a Delaware General Partnership licensed to do business in Virginia, but has no persons named as representatives. And their address is 1 Verizon Way in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and the phone numbers answer to a directory search. It's basically a contact point. So I'm not sure what Cellco has to do with this. The GDN sites, I checked on the computer and logged it in and found out it was a fellow named Ed Gibbons in West Virginia, which I'm not sure if he had the license to work in Virginia or not, but I contacted him in reference to a cell tower that I was thinking about trying to put up on my mountain. I've got land up on Route 60 on top of Long Mountain, Fort Buffalo, and cell tower coverage there is really terrible. So I talked to him about that. And doing so, I asked him a few questions. I said, you can put a 200-foot tower up there on top of the mountain, on top of Long Mountain. He said, well, we could, but 200-foot towers are really rare nowadays. You hardly see any of them because everybody's doing 50-foot and 75-foot towers. So that makes a 100-foot tower basically the holy grail for cell phone installers and land perusers like Mr. Holland and such. You can hang all kinds of transmitters and receivers on a 200-foot tower, and it does look like something out of Star Wars by the time they're done. So it's highly lucrative for the companies that put this in. And this is not Verizon. They are contracting to Verizon. Our deal is to make money off putting on transmitters and receivers. It's just an income thing. Anyway, I also figured that it would be good to kind of bridge the gap a little bit since we do need cell coverage. I still have no one yet tell me why they cannot upgrade the tower that's on top of Tobacco Road Mountain now, when their engineer at the last meeting with the Planning Commission said that that would be cheaper than putting a tower in. I said, okay. And then he also said they could move the tower a mile and a half to the south. That's where Mr. Johnson came into effect, and where we have a secondary with Malcolm Wills, who said his land would be available. Anyway, I'm against this. I hope y'all vote against this because it would save a lot of time and trouble.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
Anyone else wishing to speak opposed?
Whitney Gregory, 306 Phyllis Lee Drive. I did write something. I'll try my best to keep to the 3 minutes. I shared with the Planning Commission in February that in 1976, my father built the home I now own on Phyllis Lee Drive with my husband. To be clear, the blue dot is the proposed site. This is my house. I'm directly across the street from it. My mom loved the location so much that she never wanted to leave it. Donna Brand. Both my mom and dad passed in the last 3 years, and God blessed us with the ability to finally return to Virginia for our careers, to Amherst for our careers. So now I'm raising my 3 boys in this same house that built me, the same county that built me. Let's be clear. There are certain things that draw us to Amherst County that unite us. For me, it's not just that Amherst is my home place, but it's beautiful. It's breathtaking. This location proposed is one of our county's most breathtaking locations. Make no mistake, this tower is not our near-term gateway to Verizon's 5G network. This would be additional Verizon 4G cellular capacity. Here, you can see Virginia Tech's broadband availability map depicting 4G cellular coverage in our portion of Amherst County, completely covered in our area. Here, you can see Verizon's own map of 4G cellular coverage in our portion of the county, completely covered in our area. Therefore, this is not a pressing need. As a community, we have a problem to solve for our future. At some point, we will reach capacity in the neighboring Elon area, but not today. And with a focus on other hardwired, broadband, reliable infrastructure in our area, we can offset the 4G cellular broadband consumption. I've successfully telecommuted full-time since my return to Amherst County in 2017, using Verizon for my voice and data consumption as needed. And since mid-March, our family of 5 has been telecommuting for work and school just fine. My husband and I averaged 10 web meetings per workday, and my children started approximately 8 Google Meets per week when COVID began through the end of their school year. Let's solve the underlying reliable broadband gap for our community, not just put up another permanent eyesore for a temporary spike in expanded broadband needs. Let's use CARES Act funding and other federal and state funding to look for other cost-affordable, reliable solutions. For example, we could extend the over 100 megabit per second Wi-Fi signal at Elon Elementary to a neighboring 5-mile radius, not add more 4G cellular capacity to others who honestly cannot afford the cellular service. If we must add a cell tower to increase capacity at some point in our future, let's take the time to explore co-locating it with the other existing tall utility structures. Such structures exist coming down Tobacco Road Mountain, as well as spanning across Winesap and 130, within 2 to 3 miles of the proposed site. These structures are also near the 300 acres of service authority.
Maybe you need to wind it up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Also, if put on the service authority, the county could potentially reap the benefits of that leased land and reinvest back in the county. I ask that you deny the request and eagerly look forward to another proposal that honors our county's natural beauty as well as its residents. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak opposed? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close the public hearing section and open it up to the board for questions or consideration.
Madam Chair.
Remember any members any questions?
Madam Chair, may I just say a quick word? With respect to consideration of alternative sites, the statutory law allows you to consider alternative sites where there are towers that already exist, but not potentially leasable sites where there's no currently existing wireless facility, but you may consider other nearby towers that could be co-located upon potentially as potential other options. The other thing to recall is that there is a statute called the Spectrum Act, which would allow anything to be increased by 10% in height, which for this would be 20 feet or up to 20 feet. You could have an antenna extension up to 20 feet from the center line of the tower. And that would be by right. Jeremy would just have to rubber stamp it and prove it. So those are things that you could take into account as you're thinking through what decision you're going to make.
Thank you, Ms. Lockley. That's very helpful. Board members, let me start. I had a conversation with Ms. Schweller yesterday because I had some questions that she answered. One of them was the fact that it was a monopole and not the tower. There will be no lights on it. Earlier today, I had a meeting with our school superintendent and the finance director, and I heard again the dismal place that we find ourselves when it comes to broadband and the ability to educate our children during this COVID emergency. When I joined the board, one of the things that I felt strongly about was the ability to expand our broadband, bring us into this century, and give people the opportunity to work from home, educate themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel for everybody that's sitting in here that's opposed to this, I'm absolutely feel for you. I would say other than Mr. Ayers, I probably have one of the best views in Amherst County, in my opinion. And I take it very personally. I'm very passionate about that view. On my front porch, when I'm sitting there, sometimes having a glass of wine, what I see up on Panther Mountain is the cell tower and blinking light. that doesn't make me not like my view anymore. I'm thankful that I have access to broadband. I'm thankful that if my husband gets injured in a farming accident, that I can make a phone call. I'm thankful for those things. Nobody wants these, but anyway, it's gonna be hard. I've studied on this, and anyway, those are my thoughts, board members.
Madam Chair, this proposed site obviously is in my district. And I think majority or all of the folks that have spoken here tonight live or have family in close proximity to this tower. Been in the county here for 57 years. I do totally respect their view shed that they currently have in the Elam community looking back toward Tobacco Mountain and that entire area. And totally respect their feelings of that view shed that a lot of them have grown up and their families have grown up seeing. So with that said, I'll make it very clear I cannot support this based on the impact that it will create to that, within that community and along the only scenic byway that we have in the county. It will create an impact in that. So with that being said, I make it very clear I cannot support it.
Any other questions, concerns, conversation?
Madam Chair, I share the concerns. The view of Tobacco Road Mountain is iconic in Amherst County. And I share Mr. Lockby's view. I think we need to focus our discussion this evening solely on this site, not what could be or what couldn't be. But exactly what impact this tower would have on the views. And I think our comprehensive plan is clear. You know, I've said it many times throughout my career, I think there's a juggling act, a balancing act between the different goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. I just feel that protecting the scenic byway and the views of Tobacco Road Mountain far outweigh the other things in the comp plan. So I'm not going to be able to support this. I hope that Verizon or this company can go and look at other alternatives, but I don't think this is it. So while I fully do support broadband, I think there needs to be other options.
I think Mr. Ayers and Mr. Martin have said basically what I would have said is Tobacco Road Mountain, you can see it for miles and miles wherever you go, whether you're in Appomattox County, Lynchburg. It's definitely an iconic view and something I think we should protect and preserve. I've heard for many years that that's one of the reasons people move here is their view shed, the mountains that we have, the beauty of it. And I will agree with Mr. Martin and Mr. Ayers that I don't agree with this site. I think we can definitely look at alternatives in the future.
Well, I agree with Mr. Martin and Mr. Chu. While we need to juggle broadband efforts and the beauty of our county, it's a tough decision. But I think that we need to look at alternative sites.
All right, board member.
Madam Chair.
I want to say one more thing. Are you gonna make a motion, Mr.?
I want to.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, based on the impact of the view shed of Tobacco Road Mountain and the Elam community, I'll make a motion to move to deny the request. Also based on the Planning Commission's recommendation.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I'm a nay. And I would like to explain my vote. When the tower came up at Elam School, I voted in favor of that. I have consistently stood by my position in access to broadband for this county, and I will be consistent in that vote. I know my vote all by myself, but that's my explanation. So Anyway, the motion passes and the resolution fails.
Yeah,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I was gonna say, I was hoping we could have a little bit of discussion on the motion. I was gonna offer an amendment to that. I don't know how to deal with that, but I do, for the record, I think there needs to be some reasons given, why we denied it specifically. And I'm prepared to state those, if that's acceptable to you, Mr. Ayers.
Absolutely, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Ayers talked about the planning commission denial. I think anytime that you have a planning commission recommend denial of something unanimously, it's something we should take note of. The board also heard a substantial public opposition to the application from the citizens in the area. The application proposes a monopole tower that would substantially impair an important viewshed in violation of Amherst County Comprehensive Plan goal to preserve and maintain the unique natural features of Amherst County. That's comp plan pages 139 through 40. Among the unique features is the high peak viewshed in the Elam area, which is visible from Route 130, one of the few recognized Virginia scenic byways in our area of the state, and an important tourist route. Comp plan page 68. Expanding natural tourism opportunities in the county is also an important goal to the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan page 136 through 37. It also fails to meet the purpose of section 919 of the zoning ordinance, which provides the application should minimize adverse impacts to the county's rural and historic character and its environmentally sensitive areas. There already exists a tower on top of High Peak, which either could, in its current state, or with reinforcement, furnish an alternative deployment site without multiplying cell tower sites in the scenic Elam area, and approval of the application would not serve the public health, safety, general welfare, or good zoning practice. So I think it's important for the record that those items be noted in support of the board's denial.
Does anyone else want to make a comment for the record? All right, thank you, Ms. Martin. So noted. All right, that is the last public hearing. Thanks everyone here for coming. Yes,
Madam Chair.
Can I just ask if we could formally adopt what Mr. Martin said? Now, that what the federal statute requires is that you give the reasons for the denial, and I think it would be better if the board formally adopted them by vote than simply having Mr. Martin state them and having a general assent to simply make for a cleaner record if you would make that motion.
I would make the motion that, well, we've already recommended denial of it, but I would make a motion that we accept these reasons that I read out previously as the reasons for denial.
I mean, I understand his reasons, so if I vote yes, I'm just voting to accept his reasons.
That's correct.
I'm not, but, okay.
You're not changing.
Then my position is also clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Remember that the school board appropriations has been removed. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The consent agenda is now accepted. Moving on to new business. The emergency communications. That's this. Here's your name and.
Good evening, Gary Christie from the Central Virginia Planning District Commission. Madam Chairman and members of the board, it's great to be here. Thank you for the moment. To tell you that Campbell County now wants to come into the regional radio system. It was about 1997 that the four jurisdictions, Bedford City, Bedford County, Lynchburg, and Amherst, put a system together that serves as the backbone for radio communication for public safety in those jurisdictions. Campbell County at that time chose to set up their own independent system. 20 years later, we replaced ours. 20 years later, they need to replace theirs. They've done a study to determine that it's more economical for them to join our system than to set up another independent system. For us, it's an excellent deal in the sense that we get interoperability with Campbell County now that we don't have currently. Currently, at Liberty University, when there's a big event, there's all hands on deck in terms of emergency communications providers, EMTs, police, sheriffs, the works. And currently, Liberty can talk to Lynchburg and Bedford and Amherst on the radio system, but it's a real hassle and a problem to talk to Campbell County. With this merger, with bringing Campbell in, that interoperability will be there, and communication will be as it's appropriate. Campbell will pay about $1.6 billion to enter the system. They'll bring about 500 radios, 535 radios, and they'll pay an annual fee for that. They'll pay for all the installation of equipment on their towers, and on 2 towers that we have, they'll pay for installation of equipment there. One of the biggest savings for the system will come when it's time to replace the system we have now, because at that time, Campbell will pay about 20% of the new system. So it's just a win-win situation for both parties. The agreement that was passed in 2011, when we got the bonds to put in the new system, requires that every jurisdiction approve any new member coming in. So making the rounds to share this information and get your approval for Campbell County joining the regional radio system. Sam Bryant is here, and he will be the chairman of that radio board. Campbell will have a seat at the table, will be an equal member, and if there's anything, Sam, that you might add that I've left out, come hither.
Madam Chair, Board, thanks for the opportunity. Right now, we can't speak to Campbell County. It's through a patch. There are kids running calls in the southern part of Campbell County right now. They can't use their cell phone to call medical control or even a radio to speak and ask for help. This is going to solve that problem. We have a major incident at the airport. We never do. We can't talk to them right now. It would give the opportunity for law enforcement to be able to speak directly to an Amherst County deputy if they pursue. It's a win-win for everyone. The radio war was created to help communities and localities, and for us to be able to provide a better service. And I appreciate you giving service serious consideration. Thank you.
Brian. Board members, any questions?
Mr. Brian. Chief Brian. So there'll be no degradation to the existing users, is that correct?
No, none.
Can you get Nelson County to come on board?
It's going to be a hard sell. They just made a big investment, but you're going to radio from Nelson County.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the agreement as presented and authorize the chair to execute the agreement.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Christie. I know it was a long wait. We appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wilkes.
All right, so we have actually 3 of these, and one of them is lower down, it's the wind dam. There are 4 dams, we only have paperwork on 3. You all agreed for us to apply for the grants and do the match. We've gotten the grants, and the state says the project cost was too high, so we need another $1,000 on the 2 Buffalo River dams, and another $500 out of the Winton Reserve for the Winton Dam in order to complete the project and accept the grants.
So you need $3,500.
Well, I don't have this, there's one group dam we haven't gotten the paperwork from. Once we get it, it'll be another 1,000, but can't accept it because I don't have the paperwork yet.
And this will be coming from our unobligated.
2,000 would come from your unobligated and 500 would come from the Winton Reserve.
Okay, knowing in our budget negotiations as tight as we were on that, we only had X amount of dollars to play with, right?
Yeah, this is the grant to help get the dams inspected.
I understand that.
Okay, I just want to make sure you all know which grants
Right,
we're
well, I
talking
understand
about.
what it's for, but we're still having to We weren't expecting it going to that little pot of money that we've got.
No, that we're trying not to, but that's if you don't, then we don't do the project. So that would be because they're covering half and you all are covering half. Some of it has come out of the slope. We did not take everything for those out of the general fund. We took some out of the slope failure leftover money.
Any questions from Ms. Wilkes, board members?
Sounds like it was unforeseen, correct?
Yeah, I think the estimate was thought to be good when we presented it, and they came back and said the project cost was too high. So they're only funding half of what they feel like the project cost should be.
I wish most estimates only came back $1,000 over. Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the DCR grants for Buffalo River Dam number 3 in the amount of $5,250 and appropriate $1,000 from unobligated general fund balance for the project completion.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
There's two more.
Two more.
Yeah, 4A, I think it's 4A,
4A,
which is the same amount of money.
And Winton Farm.
And Winton Farm is 500, so I just need motions for both of those, if you all are agreeable.
4A is next.
Madam Chair, I move the board accept the DCR grants for Buffalo River Dam number 4A in the amount of $5,250 and appropriate $1,000 from the unobligated general fund balance for the project completion.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. Now we have Winton Farm.
Madam Chair, move that the board appropriate $500 from the Winton Development Reserve for the project completion.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. All right. And we've got appropriation funds for public works.
Greetings again. So our grounds crew right now has 2.5 employees, 2 full-time, 1 part-time. Traditionally, that has been enough based on the fact that we've been subcontracting our sites out for grass cutting, weeding, and general maintenance. But we've also had supplemental help from the jails, both the Blue Ridge and the Amherst County Jail. Due to the COVID, we've not had that assistance this year, and in the foreseeable future, that is not an option. The problem we're also running into is one of our crew members has been out on FMLA, which is up to 12 weeks, leaving 1.5 crew members. The other crew member's been with the county nearly 25 years in his crew, quite a lot of comp time and vacation time, which leaves us with 1/2 of an employee, which means part of the week we have 0 ground crew members. What I'm asking the board to do tonight is to make that half-time employee a full-time employee. According to the finance director, that'd be approximately $17,000 to move him into a full-time role. On the other side of Public Works in the landfill, we have $29,000 available that the funds can be drawn from. It's up to the board to decide whether or not to move the funds over from the landfill to the grounds.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Any questions for Mr. Thacker?
I have a question.
Yes.
So it sounds like there's a short-term need, but we're making a long-term decision.
It's both short-term and long-term. So the COVID is theoretically short-term, that we'll have the jail, the inmates at some point, but we can't count on it. But again, we also have crew members that have significant vacation, even when they're here full-time. We're down to 1.5 to 1 employees. So making 3 crew members means that one of them can be on vacation almost constantly. We have quote-unquote a full crew at all times, so we can send to the 6 parks and the 2 trails and anywhere else we need to have emergency need to get grass cut in the county.
So where did the $29,000 in available compensation funds come from in public work?
With the cessation of 7-day-a-week service at 3 of our community centers. So we removed 72 hours of part-time service.
So your total operating budget's not going to increase?
No, sir.
Well, look at this. If we want our county buildings, our parks, our paths, and our trails to look like we want them to look like, we've got to have the people to do it.
Speaking of parks, so I sit on the Parks and Rec board, and at the last meeting, there was some discussion about how much trash is around Mill Creek Lake and Stonehouse. And, actually, one of the board members has been volunteering his time to actually go up there and remove trash. Is this going to help with that?
I'd like to say so, so I will say so. We have been having trash
I would
issues.
hope so, yeah.
Yes, sir. We've been having constant trash issues specifically at that park. We've changed the way we handle the trash. There's a constant ongoing issue to determine the best way to handle it. Right now, we have carts there as opposed to the containers we had that were rusting out, bee infested, maggot infested. So it's a constant challenge, but one I'm aware of and one that we have the grounds crew on as well.
Do we need more trash receptacles there?
We need a better methodology.
I've been up there and picked up the trash too.
It's evolving. That's one of my next projects in Public Works. This is focused on the parks. I've already spoken with the county administrator about designing better methodologies on how we handle trash and just in general, how we handle the parks, the maintenance and the upkeep.
I think that's outstanding. Those parks are very important to our county.
Much pleasure, board. All right, I'll make a motion that the board approve allocating funding for reclassifying a current part-time employee in Public Works into a full-time employee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that moves us on to the county administrator's report. Did we forget something? Oh, yeah, the one I have moved down here to schools.
Did we do Witten Farm?
Yes. Yes, we did. You did.
Oh, you did.
You did.
All right.
All right, we're now going to the school board appropriations that we moved in the consent agenda. Mr. Arnold, you're going to speak to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Arnold, excuse me. I'm deaf.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for listening, allowing me to come and speak tonight. If you'll recall back March 23rd, Ms. Ligon, the board chair, and myself came and presented our school budget. And as part of that school budget, we did not ask for any more funds above the level funding from the previous year. And at the end of that conversation, the question was asked, what can we do for you guys? Because that was about 4 days into, or about a week and a half into our new reality. And what I had asked at that time was if you could, every year, when we get to the end of the year with our carryover money, you approve that money to go into our CIP fund. And what I asked for that night was to allow us some flexibility to move that money that we save towards the end of the year to move it into our operational funds so we can pay for the expenses. And at the time, I did not know what those expenses were. We've worked every day since then to come up with our plan to get our students back in school. And I'd like to say that the number one issue our community had was, what are we going to do to get our students back in school so our parents can go back to work? And we were able to come up with a plan to get all of our elementary schools back in school 4 days a week, which really alleviates a lot of the issues that parents were going to face. But that comes with a price. There's a lot of unanticipated costs. And if you look on the left side of this document here, these are our figures. We're looking at $1.3 million in new cost to us just to get through the year with things like PPE products. We're having to run 2 more bus routes, 2 more runs across the county every day to get all of our students in. We need extra staffing to get cleaning taken care of. We need extra staffing to make sure that we can get our students spread out in the building. And so as you can see there, that's $1.3 million. And none of that speaks to the issues that we have in trying to get connectivity to our students, because there are lots of students who are choosing to stay at home, choosing to take the remote learning option, and we're actually required to give the remote learning option. And so none of these funds on the left speak to us bringing connectivity to our students. We were able to, because of our ability to stop spending in March, and we were able to bring forward, we believe, around $800,000. You would have approved to put that into our CIP, but we are coming back to ask tonight that you, for a one-time only, this year only, so we can get our students back into school, is to put that into our operational budget so we can pay for these expenses.
Any questions of Dr. Arnold?
Sure, Dr. Arnold, what's a normal year in for you guys to go back into the CIP?
It's been 300, 400. Yeah, we anticipated about 400. And so we were able to, once we stopped spending and we cut down on fuel routes, bus routes, those kinds of things, we were able to save a significant amount of money.
So it sounded like elementary school children will be back in 4 days a week.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming the junior high and high school students have the option of doing the distance learning.
Well, actually, they all have the option of
Okay,
distance learning.
they all.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the secondary school students will be in Monday. You'll have a group on Monday, Wednesday, a group in on Tuesday, Thursday, and they're working from home on the alternate days.
So that's junior high.
Yeah, because there's less of a childcare need there.
So if it's, just help me understand, so if it's less students in the school building because you're basically dividing them up, right?
Well, not in the elementary school.
Okay, not in
Yeah.
elementary school.
Yeah, and that's where our extra staff is.
Extra staff is there in elementary. So what would happen so how much funding would be left in your CIP if this was moved over?
We currently have $329,000 in unobligated CIP funds. You can see on number 5, we have dental clinic funds, which is, would technically, that's yours to decide where that would go, but that would go into the CIP fund as well. We currently have $400,000 in our operating budget this upcoming year for our maintenance projects.
Let me ask it a different way. If this money was moved over for this, how much would be left in your CIP fund?
$329,000 is what's currently there. Yes, sir.
One last question. So you talked about the importance of the broadband and everyone has the distance learning, but did you say you guys are not focusing on that at all?
Oh, no, we are. We are. That's just not included in this 1.3. What our hope is that we can get this money appropriated tonight so we can pay for these things on the left-hand side, and we'll take portions of our CARES Act that's left over to invest in our broadband issues.
I asked a question. It looks as if there's going to be another round of money that, it looks as if it's going to happen relatively soon.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not for sure, but I mean, isn't that on the horizon? I mean,
Well,
I
mean, I know the House passed it 2 months ago, and so I don't know where it is right now. That being said, if that money does come through, then we can apply it to those costs. And at the end of next year, we'll have that money then to put into the CIP.
So best case scenario, we go through the school year, next year, midterm, whatever, COVID goes away, there's a vaccine, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Students are back in school. So a lot of this additional staff is going to go away. Right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are going to be hired under that assumption.
Understood.
So if we agree to move this from CIP into your operational budget, that gives you still the $300,000 hole, which you can plug using the general fund and.
Well, it would be the maintenance projects that are sitting in our
Okay, so
current
you
budget.
plug that, so that fixes that problem. That's thing number one. Thing number two is you got an obligation and a desire to supply broadband for virtual. Actually, it's a responsibility. You've got to do it.
Yes. And if you
So how are you gonna do that?
So at number 7, the state released yesterday the ESSER, the year, and then this technology one, which is called the Vision. These are competitive grants, but they are to provide funds for school systems to access the funds to help pay for broadband and the services and the connectivity. We're not assured of that, but we're certainly applying for them.
So, I mean, if we haven't even started that process for the schools, I don't even see how we could get it done in by the end of the first semester. Do you think,
Well,
do you disagree with that?
Well, we anticipate the lit communities plan to be to us very soon. And because it's going to be a wireless solution, it actually will happen faster. You know, we have plans in place to make do until then, with things like downloading assignments and those kinds of things onto the Chromebooks that we've already distributed to the students. But one of our big problems is that long term, it's a lot easier to have that kind of synchronous learning where the teacher and the student can actually see each other and communicate. So we think that's going to be a long-term need for us.
So if my high school student said, you know, COVID is horrible, I want to stay at home with the internet, since in our house, they can come get a flash.
If you don't have internet.
What if it's spotty?
Spotty, yeah. They would have to, we would have pickup times every week to come get the material that they would need. And that's clearly not a great option.
I'm clearly going to make sure he's in the school.
Yeah.
So was it your intent to work with the county and using the county money for provisions for your internet issue?
I think we were partnering with the county and working with LIT on how to coordinate all of our resources to work towards that. I don't know if there were funds that were going to be made available. We're trying to find some in our CARES Act, and if we get these grants, to use that.
Well, I think I'm following, but, I mean, we're talking about broadening. I mean, the school system needs it, the county needs it, the businesses. I mean,
yes.
If we can improve our internet capabilities, I mean, it's not like we can say just the school system is going to use it, right?
Well, now you're leading to where what the question I was going to get to.
That benefits everyone.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, it's logical that the school system and the county are partnering.
Yes.
But the school system can only be used, as you explained it to me earlier, it can only be used for the students. Because there's a password.
Right, the initial, if we were to put money towards this, we have to be able to secure that network for the students at home, if we're providing the network to the students.
Secure the network.
Right, so a student, like, just anybody couldn't access that network. It would be our students who could log in with their credentials and get on that network.
It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I don't doubt you, but.
Yep.
So we're gonna put internet service throughout the county.
Right.
But if you put dollars into it, the school system puts dollars into it, only the school age.
That's only if we use E-rate money. And this is not E-rate money. That was what we were talking about
How
earlier.
the heck do they know who's getting the internet service? I mean.
you're gonna have to have, you'll have to have credentials. But we're not stopping with just the students. Mr. Rogers is working off of that plan too, for everyone else.
Yeah, I'm not sure who came up with that idea. That makes sense to me. But anyway, that's not your fault.
Right.
At all. I mean, it would seem more logical to me that we improve broadband across the entire county, which solves a multitude of issues.
I agree.
But everybody should have skin in the game.
Well, they would. It sounds like there's funding available to the school system for educational purposes. We set aside $500,000 last meeting to put towards broadband. I mean, it's for the good of the community, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense.
As long as we understand that this is a county solution, not just a closed system for the school. We understand each other.
Yeah, I just have to make sure I can protect our children too, in terms of filtering their network and those kinds of things. We're providing them the network. We gotta be able to filter that for our students.
What's the difference in that and SCS or anything else that's used?
It might very well be SES. We have to use whatever's available to us. The state wants us with this money to pay for, like they've given in these grants, the ability for school systems to buy hotspots and give students hotspots and pay for the service for the year. That's what they are writing into these grants. So they want us to be able to provide for the service for these students.
I understand that your job is to provide internet service for the students.
Yes, ma'am.
Our job is to make sure that everybody,
Yes.
the county, prospers as a whole.
Right.
Y'all agree?
My goal tonight is to be able to pay for all the things on the left-hand side, so we have money to work with the county on an internet solution.
Mr. Rogers, do you have anything you want to add?
I'd like to address this at the internet update when we get to it, but unless you want me to talk through all this now.
Why don't we get a thing one?
Okay.
The first request was that the school system be allowed to move the leftover funds from CIP into operational due to the COVID issue. That's their first request.
So what would happen if the board said, no, what would you do?
Well, we would first try to figure it out, and then we might have to change our plans a little bit to accommodate, which might mean less days in school for some of our students, but we would certainly do everything we can. We felt like in March, this would be a very fiscally prudent option, because this was money that would have gone into our CIP. And I think in a year like we're getting ready to face, having money to build bathrooms and put down asphalt, I don't think is as important.
I'm just asking. So if the school year had continued on like it was going to, right, there would have been X amount of dollars theoretically.
Right.
And I think you said that was around
400.
400.
Yes.
Since things happened as they did, there was additional funding left over, or was that?
Savings.
Yeah, how much was that?
It's about $400,000.
So that's about 800,000. Right. So at least 400,000 of it was functional dollars.
That's where it would have gone in a normal year.
I would just say that there's probably a lot of localities that do not even have the option which you're explaining to us right now. And I don't know if you've talked to any of them, what they're gonna do as far as that's concerned. Is there any way we could maybe put a stipulation if money's become available through the federal government for these additional expenses, that we could make sure that money goes back into the CIP. I know that the CIP was set up the way that it is now for those savings to go there several years ago because we had a problem funding capital improvement projects. And, we've done a decent job in taking that money.
And we appreciate having
Yeah.
that money that way.
And so, and that was the reason it was set up, because in previous boards, they had just been allowed to take that additional money and roll over and use it as whatever you all chose that was the best. So at this point, I would be fine with rolling that money over, but if additional monies become available through the federal government, I would like to see that, make sure we can get that money back into our CIP.
I agree with that. I mean, I think, look, we all have the obligation, and we all want to provide our children the best education. We're part of it. And it kind of, I think the rub is taking, and it's not just because you're coming and asking for it, it's taking CIP dollars, and, stuff that goes towards building, and moving it to operations, right? That's kind of where the concern comes, right? What makes it a little bit easier for me, though, is 400,000 of it was really operations anyway.
Yes.
You would have spent it
If
you
we
had finished.
didn't feel like you guys would be good with this, we would have been spending it in June to try to figure out what we needed and go ahead and spend that money on this now. But we really didn't have a real clear estimate of that until our plan started going into place.
Yeah, I guess what makes me a little bit more comfortable with it is, A, you said that the people that would be hired, it's under the presumption.
Yes.
Right, and two, if other money did become available, this could be put back into the CIP. We're in agreement.
Yes, I think that's fair.
It would have been helpful to know this before the end of July.
I agree.
Yeah. And I know that you made some assumptions based upon comments that were made on March the 23rd, and maybe we shouldn't do that again.
And in June, internally, but.
Okay, anyway. Board members, what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I move, I'm sorry.
Adding federal funds become available to replace it.
Madam Chair, I move that the board appropriate the unexpended school appropriation from FY 2020 to FY 2021 school operating budget with the amount based on the FY 2020 audited financials. Is that the right one?
That's correct.
Yes.
All right, do we need to put on an amount?
No, it's not audible yet, so it's gotta be the amount. The amount is, we don't have it yet.
All right, so all of that with, add on to that with the understanding that if additional federal dollars, state dollars, CARES dollars become available, this funding would go back into the city.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to county administrator's report.
Yes, ma'am. If I'm.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, if I may, I think I'd like to jump to C since broadband is fresh in everybody's mind and talk about that topic first. Now, where we're at specifically with that is, when we learned that, that the school division was talking with lit communities, we immediately joined forces and decided it would make more sense if we took care of the county's teleworking responsibilities. At the same time, we took care of the school's distance learning responsibilities. And so they had a relationship with lit communities, So we produced a solicitation, advertised it, got several proposals, and turns out that the best proposal, the least expensive proposal, the most thorough proposal came from the communities. So we are in the process now of finalizing our contract with lit communities to do several things. In fact, we had a meeting this afternoon where we nailed down the scope of work, and David's in the process of writing that up, and then in the next day or so, we hope to have that contract signed. You don't need to come back to the board to do that, and we'll be in a relationship with lit communities as our broadband consultant. What we have done up to this point is we've begun collecting information on the best way to use the money that we have. We have asked SCS to produce a report of where the best places for cell towers would be. They produce a report that identifies 12 locations, and they recommended 4 of those locations that could be put up before December 30th. We then, I attempted to contact ScionTech. ScionTech is a Lynchburg provider, telephone, text, email, and got no response, but we tried. We had a meeting with Central Virginia Electric Co-op, which you know is in the northern part of the county and in the eastern part of the county, has customers and is beginning to hang fiber to individual homes. So we had a meeting with them to ask them how we might partner with them and what ideas they would have to actually lay fiber and where they could get fiber to by December 30th. Okay. Both of those parties were instructed that we would be, at this point we already knew that we were going to contract with lit communities, and they agreed that they would work with lit communities and provide data to lit communities so lit communities could perform their function. What is lit communities going to do for us? They're going to do 4 things for us. First of all, they're going to help us figure out how we spend the $500,000 of CARES Act money that you all have allotted to broadband. The CARES Act money has to be spent by the 30th of December. So that's one of their tasks. Their second task is with regard to VATI money, another type of grant. This one is a high-speed task because by next week, we have to have a fairly thorough proposal plan for the VATI money to submit with our application. The VATI money will not be available, assuming we are awarded money, grant money, and we can request realistically up to about $1 million. That application's got to be ready by next week, but the money won't be issued until February. So we need lit communities to get us a plan to get us to 30 December. Then have another plan that goes from February on. The third thing we need them to do, and this is really the big picture, and that is we need a build-out plan for the entire county. So we have the immediate need of getting the kids hooked up so that they can go to school, and hopefully we can get a big chunk of that done. And so LIT is focused on wireless to get it out to people that don't have it. We also want to look, as I said, at fiber. But they will also be looking at fiber and expanding our entire network throughout the whole county. So the first thing they're going to do is give us a plan for the end of this year. The second thing is a plan for starting next year. The third thing is a build-out plan that could take 5 or 10 years. And the fourth thing they're going to do is serve as our grant consultant, and they'll be on call to apply for grants. So for additional VATI grants, for ESSER grants, EAR grants, technology grants, the HEROES Act grants, any kind of grant, this is one of the things they specialize in, is helping communities get grant funding. So we're going to try to find a way that we can get that $500,000 spent before the end of the year to assist with broadband. And then their plan will then kick in afterwards as we build out the rest of the county. That's where we stand today. We will schedule a broadband authority meeting on the 4th of August. So that your next board meeting, we want to have a broadband authority meeting and bring the latest information, the latest plan, the applications, and where we stand, and what we think the cost would be to you at that meeting, if that's acceptable to you all. But we are trying to move quickly, and it's a hard thing now. We're approaching the end of July to spend $500,000 and get the goods delivered before December. So that's our challenge, and we're pressing hard on that, while we still work on the VATI grant application first. But they're on board. They'll be working through the weekend to help us accomplish that. And you are correct. The objective here is to get broadband out. It just happens to serve teleworking and distance learning. There's not two separate objectives. There's not two separate systems. It's all directed toward getting broadband into our households. That's where we stand with that. Any questions about broadband?
So help us watch Netflix too.
Indeed.
So Lit Communities is a consultant, right? They're gonna help us decide how to spend this $500,000 by December?
They're going to advise. I mean, if you'll recall, the board, they're going to come up with a plan that makes sense.
So what is, I got a point here. So at the very beginning of your comments, you said SES gave you 12 sites and recommended 4, something like that. Is that information just going to Lit Communities, or?
Well, yes, we have that information. It's not thoroughly fleshed out. They had to do that very quickly. Lit Communities has already come back to us with a whole list of detailed questions about equipment and propagation distances and tower heights and all sorts of things that we're now working with SES to get that information to Lit. So I think, one of the concerns of the board was, as we were trying to move quickly, was that we're not just throwing money at SCS and say, go spend our money and build something. No, now we've got a consultant that is experienced in this, and we will be utilizing their advice on what does make sense and what is effective and what will contribute to the end goal, not just the immediate goal of spending a lot.
So I know you said that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I know you said that you attempted to contact Diana Tech or whatever. I would hope that Lit Communities and you will continue to do that. I'm not sure why they didn't get back with you, but it sounded like you're talking to the co-op. Has Verizon been invited on board? I mean, there was kind of like all kind of different little pieces out there to this puzzle that we need to look at, right? And hopefully this consultant's going to do that for us.
Exactly. That's what this contract requires them to do. Collect all the existing sites, or what cable or fiber's already in the ground. Where are all the towers? Yeah, that's part of their contract, to collect all of that. And then they propose how we connect that together and how we utilize all of that.
So we're connecting dots.
Yes, sir, we are. But at this point, we're not trying to do it ourselves. We're hiring people that do this for a living.
Anything from us?
No, ma'am. That was just an update. We'll bring it to the Broadband Authority Board with whatever decisions we need to make at that time and let you know where we stand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If I may go on to the next item with regard to the item A on the Transportation Planning Organization for the region. The county is a member of the TPO, and that's where all the localities gather together to plan our transportation issues and resolve them. We have an elected board member who sits on the TPO. We have an appointed member from the county, myself, who sits on the TPO. And the TPO has a technical transportation committee where they invite citizens from the localities to participate. In the past, Mr. Will Mays has served that function for us. He's retired. And well, I was reminded recently with the new fiscal year that there are seats available. Would we like to have one? We have obtained expressions of interest from 3 individuals, Turner Perot, Michael Bryant, and Catherine Leslie Gamble, as willing to sit on that technical committee. Gamble and Bryant, as you know, are on the EDA, or EDA board members.
Planning Commission.
Or, I'm sorry, yes, thank you, Planning Commission. And Mr. Perot is now on the Service Authority Board, and in fact was chair of the TPO for the last year. In his capacity from the city, as a city council member. So I need to know whether you want to appoint one of those individuals, whether you want us to advertise, which we have not done, or whether you want them all 3 brought in for interviews.
What do you think, board members? I don't see where we need to advertise if we've got 3 people that are already interested.
No, my thought is we should give deference to planning commission, is what I would say.
Mr. Rogers, are they aware of what time the meeting is? Do you know?
Yes, they were set, the information that came out inviting us to have us, that was forwarded to them.
I was, I mean, we could sit here and we could interview all 3, and we know all 3 of them are more than capable to serve on this board. I would be like Mr. Martin and say that I would choose someone from our planning commission. I think that my opinion would be that Leslie Gamble would be a good person to appoint to that board. She's very intelligent, she's qualified, I know she's retired, and she has.
The words out of my mouth.
So that's who I'll go ahead and make a motion that we appoint Leslie Gamble to that position.
All right, motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, motion passes. Ms. Pugh is appointed.
You mean,
Ms. Gamble.
Ms. Gamble, excuse me.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Mr. Ayers.
I want to bring up something that I talked to Mr. Rogers about it yesterday. Mr. Martin has accepted that responsibility to serve, the board member to serve on that organization, and then due to conflicts, he had to step away from it, and then I had agreed to take it based on the pretty much regular schedule of their meetings. They have, over the last 6 or 8 weeks, meetings have increased quite a bit. I cannot, based on with my job, what we have got going, I mean, that I missed a meeting at 10 o'clock this week, and the director said that there will be pretty much meetings regularly throughout the month for the next, I believe she said, at least 4 months. It's no way. If there are any other board member that feels that they could fulfill that obligation and do it, to attend it, the meeting, the door's open, because I'm letting you know right now, it's no way that I can fulfill the obligation that is there right now as far as the meetings, and most of them are done virtual, but based on my job right now and commitments that we've got going on, it's no way that I can attend those.
I certainly understand that. Mr. Rogers, I had asked you if it was possible for the elected official to have a proxy attend those meetings. Did you ever get an answer to that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's, in the bylaws that set up the organization. It
has
calls
to be
for
that.
elected officials
Okay, no
from each of the localities.
No proxy, okay. Well, board members, I don't think we need to go through this now, but is that an official resignation, Mr. Ayers?
I will try to fulfill it, yes, and you can say, I can't fulfill that obligation.
Okay.
I cannot.
Understood.
Yeah, I'll just say, I can't do it because of conflict of interest with my employment. I think, Mr. Ayers, you were not expecting.
I was
to be able to do that. And I appreciate you taking that, but I wish I could do it, but I can't.
Will 3 remaining board members give it some thought, and if we you know,
Did they say,
figure out a way to do it.
did they say how frequently the meetings are?
Normally, Mr. Rod, you correct me, it was like one a quarter,
1 month,
one a month.
1 month.
And now it's, I mean, it's, he said they're gonna be, over the next 4 months, be more meetings than normal because of the activity that is going on. So, I mean, of course, I was just trying to get into that, but, you know, like the one at 10 o'clock, it was an orientation meeting, and I couldn't do it.
Are they all virtual?
Right now, they have been.
But they weren't virtual before.
It's my understanding that we're not.
The standing meeting time is, the third Thursday at 4 PM.
What's that?
Third Thursday of the month at 4 PM.
Are they the additional meetings?
No, that's the regular
That's the regular
standing
meeting.
meeting time.
Oh, the technical committee meets at 10:30 on the second Thursday. I got it.
Yeah, yes, this is the big committee, not the technical committee.
I mean, I'd have a hard time doing that to serve on that board. I work full-time, sit on the planning commission and I already have to come down here to the, social services board. I just would have a hard time to do it.
Same for me, even virtually.
It's more you do fine with those virtual meetings.
I can't access
Okay,
it.
definitely.
Well, I guess we'll just figure it out.
Let's, can we discuss it at our next meeting? And I'll think, I'll think about it, but as soon as I start traveling again, I'm not gonna do it. But anyway, we'll bring it up the next meeting, Mr. Rogers.
Yes, ma'am, I'll add it to the agenda. Another item that has just come up, I want to get the board's okay to schedule a town hall style meeting during our regular second meeting on the 18th of August. So the 18th of August is our second meeting of the month in August. It's a nighttime meeting. And I'd like to advertise that that's a town hall style meeting, which is, back and forth. It's open and more relaxed, to discuss the business tax changes. So we would advertise this, we put it out through the Chamber of Commerce, and let the world know that this is the time to come and engage with the Board of Supervisors with regard to the tax changes.
I won't be here, but I don't have to be here.
No.
Sonia is more.
Some of the tech, and also, I mean, regarding the tax changes, some of these questions, are we gonna be able to answer all of this? I mean, I don't know, I'd probably have a hard time answering some of those questions, considering they were put together by the Commissioner of Revenue and some others, and you brought that before us to see, if we agreed with these type of changes. So.
Well, in a normal meeting, in the public comments portion, people can make comments and you don't have to respond. In the public hearing, they come and they make comments and you don't have to respond. In a town hall meeting, they could come make comments, they could ask questions, you can direct staff to answer those questions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the idea that we're open, we're transparent, you can see how we think, you can see what our staff has told us about this. Jane would be there, and we would be there, Mr. Lockerbie would be there, and we would address their questions. And this is our chance, I mean, we only had positive feedback up till now. We do have as one of our goals, one of our metrics, to hold more town hall meetings. And this is a topic that should be important to people. And so I thought that's how we would do it. We don't want to dawdle our time away by pushing this off and be up against the end of the year when we want it to take effect. So I thought August would be a good time to do that.
I don't have a problem with that. I think you need to have the appropriate staff in the room also.
That's right.
As Mr. Hughes.
Absolutely. I'm not a tax expert, I don't think any of us on the stage are, but we certainly have to have staff available.
We would make the same presentation that we made before and then invite questions from the audience. I mean, there may not be any, but at least give the opportunity for people to ask questions about it and then let us answer them. And then you can hear from them as to how for or against this they really are. Because it's not a done deal until you vote it so. Because Mr. Lockaby is still drafting the ordinance changes that would have to take effect. And then we'll still hold a public hearing on that actual ordinance. So this is like a little extra hearing before we get to the formal public hearing. So I'll proceed with that date, if that's okay with you, the 18th of August. And other than that, I gave you the latest project status report, and I'm prepared to answer questions about any of those projects.
All right, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very brief update on what I've been up to that probably hasn't been particularly obvious to you, but has sucked up a lot of my time. I have actually spent a decent amount of time on litigation for y'all recently. I actually went to court for the sheriff on a subpoena that was sent to him last Friday. Managed to get that quashed. I have a hearing this coming Monday. We're tangentially involved in a mechanics lien piece of litigation over at Hawkwood Road because we own a conservation easement on the golf course, and now they're trying to sell it out from under us, and complicated. And of course, the Gallimore case continues to suck up time that I otherwise could be using more productively. We did complete the first draft of the public safety ordinance that's currently on Director Bryant, the not clean shaven Bryant's desk, and working on the broadband amendments along with sign ordinance amendments and solar amendments to the zoning ordinance, as well as taking all the stuff that still refers to Title 33.1 and updating it to 33.2. And finally, putting together all the tax ordinance stuff. So I wanted you all to realize that this is all stuff that I'm working on, and some of it's a lot of work. I try to look like a duck, like I'm just hanging out here at the meeting, but there's a lot going on underneath the water.
Thank you, Mr. Lockaby. Ms. Wolf, is there anything that you need to tell us about the general fund report? Okay. All right, we will now open up the meeting, citizen comment. Anyone here wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we will close citizen comment and move on to matters from members of the board. Mr. Ayers?
I have nothing, ma'am.
Mr. Martin?
Madam Chair, last year, the board, which I was not a member of, saw its way fit to fund a new fire engine for, well, the majority of it, the vast majority of it, for Amherst Fire Department. That engine is sitting in the fire department building right now. We've been working very hard to get that engine outfitted with new tools, and we will be having a dedication ceremony on Saturday at 10 a.m. To dedicate that new engine to many years of service to Amherst County. And we'd just like to invite the board and the public to that.
Very good, that's exciting.
Very, very much so.
Mr. Pugh?
Yes, I received a complaint. I know this would most likely be to the sheriff's office, but if you could contact the sheriff's office as well. But I received a complaint on speeding along Winesap Road. And I would just like to pass it on to the sheriff's deputy. I got a complaint from Miss Catherine Epperly that lives on Winesap Road, talking about excessive speeding in that area. More along from the railroad tracks up to 29. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Ms. Moore?
One thing, I would like to applaud VDOT or whoever is mowing the hills and stuff in my district, but ask VDOT to consider taking down the weeds in the median. I did receive concerned citizens complaint about the weeds in the median, but they are doing much better with mowing.
Thank you. And I don't have anything. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting is adjourned.
I know.